if you want to heal quick, get a partner. Like, your partner is perfectly positioned to be your greatest wounder, or to do the most damage, or to heal you. They're going to do one of the two, and it's not going to be dependent on them but you as to which path you take with them. They'll either heal you or
they'll be your mirror. They'll be your mirror.
Your partner is absolutely your mirror, and men do that, like you've said, to their detriment, because I remember I was single for 2.5 years before getting into my relationship with my partner now, and I was so selective going into it. I was very clear what I wanted, and I'm so grateful I've done that, because again, there's options, and it's not the relationship, more than half the battle is whether you're compatible or not. If you pick right from the beginning, do we have enough similar interests and share values that allow us to, by default, when we're both exhausted and shit and triggered, to still be compatible and loving each other? Whereas most people pick each other off lust and like
all those chemical
shit in the moment. And then when all that's said and done and gone, there's not much that's actually gluing them together. There's not many. I use an analogy as a table. If each leg on a table is an interest that you have, so say if we both really value honesty and integrity, and then communication is an absolute must, and then the third one is we share the value of spontaneity and fun, like, which is a human need. Like, if we all, particularly women, we have to have fun and variety, whereas men like to sometimes over provide safety, for example, and the woman ends up bored, and it's like, how do I go find fun? And it usually comes out in unhealthy ways. So there's 3 legs. There's like communication, honesty, fun. That'll hold the table up. The relationship's sturdy, but it's still relatively easy to knock. If you lean on the wrong side, it's going to fall. If you chuck a 4th leg on, a 4th value, such as contribution, we both contribute in the same way, and we both share a similar love language, such as physical touch, that relationship by default is sturdy. People can come knock it, throw shit at it, it's not getting rocked. So you have a safe, sound, stable relationship. Whereas if you take one leg away, and it's completely different, you get a whole different relationship. So if we pick off compatibility in the beginning and are smart with picking, the relationship's by default going to be so much better. And that's one of the best things I done is being selected with my partner. And there was a point to this, like why I originally brought it up. It all comes back to
build foundation.
We're traumatized to some degree.
It's time for a drink. You think about it.
I think I got lost here on a tangent there, but back compatibility, to at least wrap that point up. Compatibility is fucking massive. If you choose right from the beginning and you're a bit more selective and you're aware of what you want, you are almost doomed to have a healthy relationship, which will heal you because you're compatible. Whereas if you're incompatible, they typically end up hurting you, or you hurt yourself through them.
I think, like, and when you say compatibility is with people, like, as in what I value needs to be the same as, you know, that person on that side, but based on like whether, you know, having the same interests with somebody, that's maybe my number 3, you know, and is that yours, and things like that. As a single woman, and if I went on a date, you know, tomorrow, I would do either 2 things. I'd either be ultra quiet and I'd be like a mouse, right? Because I can have a conversation with a glass and it's a fun conversation, right? Because I talk for a living and I talk all day, right? So I would want to see whether you make this conversation interesting, or is it me, right? So I would either be quite bare minimum with my interaction, right? Or I would literally throw a contract on the table and be like, hey, what's your love language? What's your attachment style going on?
Yeah, but
what is this? What is that? What is that, right?
What is your go-to? What is your go-to?
Talking.
Yes.
All the time. Too much.
Stop it.
So I said, Michelle, you got to...
I know. Either I just won't meet them at all and we'll just do like verbal conversations on the phone.
So that's what I love to do, right? I love to listen. You're going to tell me everything I need to know about you, because if someone likes to talk, they're revealing themselves.
Yeah.
And so if you just sit back, we had an experience not long ago when we went out.
Right. So we actually did a experiment whilst we were out.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was so good.
Yeah. That was what? Five guys.
I think you told me this.
Five guys out and about dancing, you know, literally just dancing to each other. The club had finished and we wanted to continue our conversation, so we went to another
Let's
bar.
talk about the chemical reaction first, right? So there was a guy that both of us thought was attractive.
Yeah.
Michelle fucking honed in. I was like, okay, love, go for it. Right? So she honed in on him.
Initially physically attracted. Yes, I'm physically
having
attracted
that
to this
chemical
person.
reaction, trying to get the guy.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, after everything had ended,
more private bar where we could hear conversations quite
so
clearly.
we were all sitting down and having a conversation. So she was opposite him. And
I was
she's that
opposite,
best.
yep, to them. And then I was sitting to somebody here. There was 5 guys and 2 of us, basically. And the most interesting thing was, by the end of the conversation, and we're talking for the next 3 hours straight, to the point that I even filmed about 20 minutes of our conversation, because I was like, I need to, and I said, guys, just pretend like nothing's filming. And I made them aware, you know. Anyways, and I was now no longer attracted to that person that I was physically attracted to, because his mind over here was way more attractive, because I spent the time to talking and getting to know them more individually, and we had some really hard questions going, and we had some really interesting subjects, and
that was so great.
It was so much
open,
fun.
and like these are men, you know, they were in their 40s,
yeah,
early
like
50s,
30s, maybe 35 was the youngest, maybe, but and the questions that we were asking them was obvious answers to us, and then they would ask us a question, and I'll be like, oh my god, no, is that what you really think? Wow, okay. So we had said the most number one attractive thing for us women is safety, and they couldn't understand the aspect of that. They're like, physically safe, and I was like, no.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
What's your version of safety as women? Like, how would you define, if a man satisfies safety within you, what has he done, or what's happened in order for you to actually feel safe?
So for me, it's, you referred to it before, like, as the rock, right? Someone that, if I'm having a bad day and I'm going to have a friggin' emotional breakdown, that person's going to hold me in that space. Not physically, just hold the space for me to be able to release and be who I am without the fear of judgment, that I'm going to be, you know, judged and
Abandoned,
crucified, or
abandoned.
you know, dismissed. You know, dismissiveness is huge in men these days. You know, you're having a conversation with them, and then oh, this is too much. See you later. I'm checking out right now.
That's really unattractive when a man can't handle an emotion from a woman.
And it's funny because men say, oh, we know that you guys are so emotional, but I'm like, well, then you don't do anything with it, or you run away.
Yes.
And I absolutely agree with what Viv said, and I would add, like, if I'm going to have a bad day or a moment, or I'm in a relationship with you and I can only give you 20% because my brain is completely on overload, and I'm going to look like a fucking nightmare.
And you're afraid that I won't be able to handle it.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I can't be myself with it.
Exactly. I need to be a fucking nightmare, and you say, Michelle, it's okay, and I still love you, and you look amazing, and I'm like, you know, no, but I'm a mess. And that holding space, and I want that physical hold, and say, baby, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Without even figuring out what that's going to look like, so I can fall into someone's arms as a mess, and you're going to hold me, and I'm going to be like, oh, it's okay.
See, the thing is, men, part of the masculine is that they want to fix.
Yeah,
Kind
problem
of
solvers.
solutions.
You guys are great
right?
problem solvers.
And it's just like holding space for a woman. You don't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
You just have to hold the space, literally. And I think it's the hardest thing for anyone, whether you're a man or a woman, to be able to do that. You know, someone dies, what's the hardest thing? We're thinking, what's the right thing to say to this person that's grieving and going through this pain? I don't want to see you go through this pain. Someone is, even your girlfriend, right, is breaking down, and when the girl turns around and says, don't cry. No, let them cry. That's the worst thing you could ever say to someone, you know. You're suppressing them in that moment to shove down their emotions, and holding space is sitting in the discomfort with that person.
Being uncomfortable together.
Absolutely.
Just being there.
Just being there.
It's not hiding from the pain, because, as I alluded to before, like, one of the few constants in life is pain. And if you hide from it, which is, loss is a form of pain. There's loss, less, never. There's 3 types of pain or fear. And if we avoid any one of them, death of someone, loss of relationship, you aren't getting rid of the pain, you're delaying it.
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, the worst thing you can say is don't cry.
Yeah.
Fucking cry.
Oh, yeah.
Harder than you think you need to.
Do you tell your son, is it a son?
Yeah.
Do you tell him to cry?
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
I tell my kids
tell them to
cry
breathe
all the
and
time.
cry and open up.
Yeah.
And that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I love that you were saying that, because so many women are unaware of that like, that's needed. And that it's okay as well.
I know many women that are still afraid to these days to cry in front of another woman.
So I teach
Especially
yoga,
men,
right? I teach yoga. When people are on the mat, things can come up for them, right? Emotionally. And people don't realize that, right? Because they think they're coming just to stretch. But this is a whole mind, body, heart practice, right? To get you truly connected. So over the years, I've had so many women at the end of the class come up, they're just like, oh my God, I wanted to cry. Why didn't you? Why didn't you? You're scared of the judgment of others. You're worried about how you're going to be perceived in that moment. Like, why is she crying? You know what I mean? I'm just like, you just did yourself a disservice by shoving it back down when it was trying to come up and be released.
Yeah.
Because when it comes up and it's out, it's gone.
How much better do you feel?
That's it, but
Yeah.
it's gone. You've released
It's
it. You've
meant to
let that
happen.
emotion move through you, because in the end, it's just energy and motion, and we're just releasing it. Our pains and our traumas is because we've shoved shit down and it's being held and stored within us.
Is that go back? I've said it before, that generational sort of trauma. Like you say, do you cry in front of your son?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You got to
You
show.
got to role model.
Lead by example. It's to be masculine, you need to lead by example. And lead by example means walk the talk. If you can't say one thing and do another thing, if you do, you create incongruency, and to that degree, you're not masculine, and you set a bad example for everyone around you.
This is why I love kids who cry at the drop of a hat and scream at the drop of a hat, because they're not like
Expressive.
they're so expressive that they don't get to us at our age and go, oh, I can't do that, I can't do that. And I always say to my kids, I should be the one having a meltdown here, right? And sometimes I do, and they think it's the funniest thing on the planet. But yeah, in my house, it's a lot of I feel unhappy, I feel sad, I feel angry, I'm overwhelmed.
But see,
It's all these
this
emotional.
is how you're making change, right? So you've got boys,
Yeah.
and you're teaching them to actually feel their emotions. Whereas, for a lot of men growing up in a time where it was just like, don't cry.
Don't
Get over
cry.
it.
Don't cry.
Get over
Yeah.
it. Eat concrete, like you said, like that.
Yeah, it's a problem. And I love what you alluded to take a step back to what you said, how women will maybe let out 20% in fear of judgment, or can you handle this, or will I be judged, like whatever it is. And men need to realize that, yes, they need to provide that safety, and in doing so, they get more of what they want. So a lot of men think they want to avoid the woman's mess. They're like, fuck, this is emotional, this and that. That's why men don't realize that's why they love the woman they want, because of the feminine, raw beauty and power that exudes from them, which is emotion. Women are more emotional creatures, as you said, and I love saying that myself. Women are emotional creatures, but typically men suppress the thing that they love in women, or the thing that they fell in love with. The emotional, raw love and beauty, once they have it, it's like, suppress it.
Yeah.
And to the degree that men can't make a woman feel safe to do 100% instead of 20 when it's time to release, and literally make no sense, just be fucking an emotional mess and a wreck and be like, fuck, I'm scared of this and I'm worried about that, and you didn't look at me right the other fucking week. And it's like, if a man can't let all that come out and embrace that, say if you can only let out 50%, he only gets 50% of the good as well, because the pendulum doesn't swing like one way, it goes both ways.
That's
If we
right.
limit it this way, we limit it that way. So if you're only giving 20% when it's a mess, he's only ever going to get 20% of you at your best.
That's right.
Because you don't feel safe to give that and share that either. And then he's left going, where the fuck's my woman that I was so infatuated and in love with earlier? I've got less of it. And then typically they either lean in too much and suffocate you, or they withdraw, and then you're left going, wow, I can't be myself with you, and now you're pulling back too. And it's typically that's the beginning of the end of the relationship. So if men, for example, prioritize providing safety for women, so much is fixed. Like 9 times out of 10, the issues are fixed in a relationship. And it's why I asked that question, like, what's your idea of safety? Because what I tell a lot of men, how to provide safety is, because you say, how do I do it? I say, forget everything you know, and you're going to do one thing. To provide safety is to provide consistency for a woman. When you can show up consistently and they know how you're going to respond and react, that gives them permission to be themselves. Whereas if you're worried how they're going to respond to your mess, instead of being sturdy every time regardless, you don't know how to show up.
That's
or you
right.
limit your...
We're not going to be also consistent too, because we're almost treading on eggshells, because we don't know how you're going to react.
Exactly.
Also.
It might be loving and caring one time, and the next time you're getting abused because you're being irrational. And you
right.
are, but it should be okay.
Yeah.
Because
But do you
he's
think, sorry to cut you off, but do you think when women do it and we're emotional and we're vulnerable, do you think it puts the pressure on the guy and in that relationship thinking, gosh, she's being like this, now she wants me to be like this, and I don't know if I can, because we're usually not the lead is in that sense, but because we are a little bit more emotional, that we can naturally do it better.
Yeah.
Do you think the man will turn around and think, oh God, now I have to, she wants to see that side of me?
I think if men do think that, it's the wrong thing to think. I think men and women want different things. Like we don't... like I would go as far as saying, and I do say this to men, and it'd be nice to get your opinion on it actually, because so far it's been agreed with 100% of the time, but I'm waiting for the day it's not. But I don't think women want men to be overly vulnerable. Yes, share, communicate, but don't be weak, because there's a difference between being weak and being vulnerable. A lot of men show up weak, and weak rocks the foundation of safety and certainty in a woman. If you, like, it sucks to say, and it doesn't matter whether it's politically correct or not. What matters is the truth and what gets results. And people want healthy, long-lasting relationships, and women want men that can show up for them and be vulnerable without being weak. And what most men do is they show up weak, and they do that by saying, I'm sad about this, or I don't like this, with no structure or clarity or safety in communication.
Yeah, a woman will lose respect for a man if she sees that, you know.
Yeah, if your man comes up to you that you're infatuated with love, and it starts being super insecure and then controlling. So, and this is what most men do. They think being vulnerable is saying, I don't like when you look at other men, don't fucking do it. That's weakness. What needs to happen is, and here's the big difference. I don't like you looking at other men, it's flirty, I'm vulnerable, I'm scared you're going to leave me. No woman is getting turned on by that. Everyone's going, fuck, he's a boy. Whereas if the man says, honey, fidelity and our image as a couple is important to me because it affects how we show up in the world, the respect and attention that we garner and the people we're with. I don't appreciate you looking at men or talking to them the way you did that night. It doesn't look good on me. And if you want to say that's insecurity, good on you. You're not for me. But I respect my image, and I want my woman to be a representative of who I am. And she needs to be strong, have demure, be confident, powerful. I'm not saying dim yourself. I'm saying don't give them attention that they don't deserve, that is warranted for me and me only. That's vulnerable, and that's fucking sexy, and a woman will go, oh my God, I've got a man here who can communicate and has values. And that's what women want. They want a man who can instill and communicate values. The issue is a lot of men, they're afraid of coming across as controlling because, again, they do it in a weak way.
Yeah, that's true. But it's almost like a dominance, right? Which for me is super attractive. I'm okay with consistency, like consistently not telling me what to do in a sense, but your standards.
It provides safety, right? Because you have consistency.
Exactly. Verbalize your standard, because obviously I will do that also, but you know, you don't have to say it in an aggressive way or raise your voice at me. You know,
it's the way you communicate, right? And it's a skill. It's a skill that we need to cultivate, right? In communicating. That's something that I've been doing with the people that I've been seeing this year. Is just like, I'm going to learn how to communicate better. You know, like, it doesn't matter about the longevity of it. It's like, it's an experiment. And I'm just like, I'm going to get better at communicating. I'm going to get better at setting boundaries and speaking my truth, but not in an aggressive way, not in an abusive way, you know, in a very respectful way. And it's been very successful.
Yeah. I love the word boundary is a bit of a buzzword nowadays too, especially for women, and so many women are doing it wrong. Like, it's particularly young women who, like, used to, for example, you've lived a life where you've figured out what you do and don't want. And a boundary for you is, I know this doesn't work because it leads to this. And I was also hurt last time, so I'm not going to tolerate it. Whereas a lot of young women, which in relationships like 35 and under, I've heard, they put these stupid boundaries in place that destroy the relationship because it goes, you raised your voice at me, never again or we're done. Whereas they fail to realize the reason he raised his voice is because he got angry, not aggressive, that's not okay. But raising your voice because you're angry and upset says typically there's a standard that hasn't been respected or a boundary that's been crossed. And it's like, why did he raise his voice to you? Oh, because I was fucking talking to some guys. Did you make him look to some degree less desirable, or were you disrespecting him by flirting? I'm allowed to flirt. Were you flirting? Yes. There you fucking go. You're putting a boundary in for something that should never be enforced in the first place. You're the one wrong here, so you've got a boundary that you need to respect. Like, you've disrespected a boundary and are now putting a boundary to not get punished for it. And that's what fucks it for a lot of men. And then this poor guy who's ill-equipped and doesn't know what's going on goes, I can't enforce my standards or boundaries because I made wrong for it. And a problem is a lot of men become a lesser version of themselves and end up becoming weak, and then the woman's not attracted anymore, and they either leave or cheat because they don't fulfill them anymore. But
I think online, like with social media and things like that, there's so many analogies and the words that are thrown around, but it's the 35 and under that get really easily groomed because they're just constantly being groomed.
That's a good way of putting it, groomed.
Yeah, well, there's one word and they throw it around, which was narcissistic. And everyone's...
It's premature meaning.
Do you actually know what a fucking means? Because I reckon if you actually lived it, you wouldn't have a clue, right? But, you know, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And it's shit like, and there's so many analogies out there that I don't even agree with, like the no contact, and if he could, he would, and all these kind of stuff. I've only found one human online. She's a lady psychologist, relationship expert, who I've gone, oh my God, it's exactly what I think. I agree with that.
Yeah,
And
but when there's so much out there, you have to use your own discernment, right? Like, what is resonant for you? What is
absolutely?
And we go through different phases. So certain things may have been resonant, you know, like 10 years ago, and now we hear it and just like, oh no.
Because we were in our 30s 10 years ago, right? And we'd be like, yeah, cool. Like
but we just constantly have to use our discernment. What resonates with you? When there's so many voices, all these opinions, all these so-called experts out there.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck's the expert? Like, who's that? You read something in a fucking book.
But I think
and does that make you an expert at it? You know, you have to
You got experience.
decide.
it.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
experience it too, but I think there's a lot of outsiders there that are grooming women, especially, to be cold-hearted. Fuck him, you know, I'm better, and it's like just this resentment towards men. Like, if he would, he could, but like, do you understand the psychology? If a human really, really wanted to, they probably couldn't, for X, Y, and Z trauma and all this kind of jazz around it. But there's so many women, and they're in their 20s, and they just shit me up the wall, and I just think,
they're not women though, they're girls.
That's true.
Well,
but
the
you know, the vasopressin, you know, like if you want a man to love you, just ignite his vasopressin chemical in him, which is a stress hormone. And I'm like, why would I want to fucking stress a man out for him to want to love me? That is so tiring. I'm like, I want him to love me because I'm not, you know, stressing him out. And there's one vasopressin will get ran for the next 3 weeks on TikTok, and everyone talks about it. I think, stop being a bunch of sheep. I do not want to be with a man that I have to stress out. I couldn't think of anything worse.
But why would you want to do it? Like, what doesn't make sense?
Because everybody else is doing it, right? And that's the part that I really, and it's a lot of women, a lot of angry, resentful women online in their 20s, maybe 30s, you know, going, yeah, you're right. Well, how about you use your own brain, your own discernment, go get into a relationship, let me know what the triggers are still left there, and if you're getting,
you know what's interesting about what you're saying, and this just goes back to the dick pics, right? Why men, right?
Love it out, no.
Full circle.
Why I feel like men think it's okay to send dick pics, because fucking women allow it.
Of course.
So women allow it. Like, why would they keep? Yes. Why would they keep doing it?
Allow.
They think that that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's just even the way that men talk to women, you know, on dating apps and things like that. They get away with a certain language and dialogue.
Well, you had yours preset. Sorry, you had yours preset, your dialogue.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So you had your strategy. You
were like a cookie
Message one, message two, message three.
Yeah. But men, actually, that's something that I recognised in talking to men through dating apps, is that they've got a fucking strategy. And they use that because it obviously works. They've found a way that, this is how I get
But women also allow it for it to work and for it to continue happening.
All right. So women want validation. They want all these things. It's like, look, it's not just men sending fucking dick pics. It's women sending freaking nudes and all of these things, you know?
It's all flirty flirts. Like, come over. Flirty flirt. That goes missing for a few days. Comes back, flirty flirt. You're like, well, come over.
Yeah, they go freaking fishing as well, you know? Just like, go on, you know?
Yeah, that's what it's like.
What man is not going to respond, you know?
Oh, it's free porn delivered to your your phone.
And you haven't done anything.
That's right. You haven't earned it. You haven't hunted for it. You haven't tried.
Yeah, so the poor guy is, you know, going in his pants, you know what I mean? And
they're rewarded for bad behaviour.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I actually, I was going to say, forgive me for being so crude, but I'm not sorry at all. It needs to be crude. We are essentially just complex dogs or animals. We have a nervous system, and we learn by pain or pleasure. And if we're rewarded for bad behaviour, we keep doing bad behaviour. It's at the end of the day, like, bad behaviour needs to stop being rewarded, but we live in a society where it is. So it's the only way to change it is, coming back to what you're saying, is we need to have discernment, but fuck, that's easier said than done.
I know.
It's a selfish world though, right? Like, everyone seems to be selfish.
Well, I think, selfish and them first. And I think that's okay. I'm a big believer in being selfish, but it's got to be all based off win-win, because there's a difference between being selfish and not giving a fuck about other people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very selfish
Yeah,
because
only giving.
the more I look after me, the better everyone else around me looks
Absolutely.
after as well.
That's
And
a good selfish. I was told to do that, during my process.
See, I wasn't. I was told I grew up as a young boy with a single mum with many different father figures in our drug dealers, abusers, gang members, as I told you the other week, genuinely diagnosed psychopaths who told me or showed me how men shouldn't be. I had no healthy role model of how a man should be, and it was all what I shouldn't do. And then mum's idea of what a good man is, which is I've learned is being raised by a single mother, and like again, your situation with the kids, you can teach them so much, but there still needs to be a healthy masculine figure, because a lot of the time, like, you can't not have it. Like it's
Absolutely. I can't be a great dad.
No.
I can be an okay one.
Same as a man could
But I
never
can't
be a great
one.
mother. No fucking way. We need both.
You need both.
And we typically end up looking outside of ourselves, outside of mum and wherever else for this, and there's a lot of shit men around, and it just self-perpetuates.
But the problem is, so I've got a 6-year-old and 8-year-old boy, right? And I'm constantly not rewarding them for bad behavior. And then I'm, meeting men who I'm not also going to reward you for bad behavior, because I'm trying to do that with my 8-year-old. So if you're showing up to me as an 8-year-old, this is not going to work, because I don't want 3 kids. I only decided to have 2.
You'd be surprised how many men I've helped.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah. So many men I've helped have said that their partner has said they feel like another child to them.
Yeah, I got rid of my last child because he was 40 years old. Like, I didn't, opt for that. But
Why does that happen?
There's a few reasons.
Is it the female or is it the male? Like, is the weakness? Or
so in my instance, my ex-husband's mum still condoned his bad behaviour, which allowed him to stay this little tiny boy who would get constantly rewarded for his shitty behaviour, which was hardcore domestic violence in my relationship. Do you know what I mean? And even when we were, AVOs and assault charges, and when I was the strongest violence that happened towards me, the first person I called was his mum. And I said, there is something seriously wrong with your mum. And she said, you need to have more patience for my son. I said, oh no. 6th of November 2018 is the date that gets embedded. If you ask me what I did yesterday, I wouldn't have a clue, right?
Yeah, remember that date.
I can remember that date very, very. And that was the day that I said, no, I'm out of here, right? But again, in that scenario, you're in a lose-lose battle, because if and I'm a mum of sons, do you know what I mean? And then you're a victim of violence, and then you get into the court system, and I'm a victim of the system, the legality system, and that's not really working out. But for single mums, you stay for your kids because they were so little, but then you have to realise that you have to leave for them. So that is not their role model.
Yeah, because if you stay in a relationship that's not going to work, that's also what they see as well.
Absolutely. And
it's noble intentions, but it seems like the right thing to do. I've done that with my relationship over years. I stuck around probably 2 to 3 years longer than what I should have, wanting to keep the family together, knowing that this is not a healthy relationship to be in.
My youngest was 8 months old.
Yeah.
And my oldest was
especially
2.5.
when there's
It's the
abuse,
hardest thing to do, isn't
you're
it?
only showing your children this is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And
This
you
is
can't
okay
blame
to be
them.
treated
You
like
can't
that.
blame them, because that's their first role model of their first caretakers and the version of love. You know what I mean?
It's a hard one.
And that conflict a child goes through, loving their parents. Loving their parents, and then you're role modeling to them, hey, it's okay for dad to hurt mum and do
My
these
children
things.
know
or,
the absolute truth. And
either way, look, there are situations where the roles are reversed, where, women are the abusers as well. But and then parents usually say, mothers especially, I stay for the kids, to stay to keep the family unit together. And it's all from the goodness of your heart. You think it's the right thing to do, not knowing the damage that is actually causing.
so I've had
the children.
one partner in 5 years, and my oldest felt he knows me as well as I know him, right? But he knew that it was getting serious, and he said to me, and he's so intelligent, he said, Mummy, who are you going to choose, Daddy or my partner, blah, blah, blah? And I said, well, my partner. And he said, well, why? And I said, because I'm, trying to explain to an 8-year-old. And I said to him, look, this is only, we're driving, it was very off guard. So the only kind of analogy that I could say to him, I said, look, if Daddy and, X here is in a car accident, I'm going to choose your dad. I love both of them in different ways, but I don't want you to be ever without a dad. So I'm going to choose your dad. If I could show that as love and respect for my son, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And I would say to him, do you want me to be with Dad? And he says, yeah, absolutely. But you know what Daddy did to me. He goes, I still want you to be with my dad. Like, you know, at what age do they grow up and understand that it's not healthy and that, they
don't realize that until they get into their own relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
To have that kind of compassion, you know, for what, you know, until they realize for themselves
they
get the
experience of relationships.
I didn't realize the meaning of sacrifice until I gave birth to my first son with my own mum. My mum was the first person I thought of when I gave birth, and I thought, ooh, now I'm going to have one of my own shit. My poor mummy.
This is what your upbringing as well, like to do what you're doing is pretty fantastic, you know. You turned it around, right?
Yeah.
What you've gone through as well, you know.
And that's it. We usually take our pain, you know, and like then turn it into some kind of service to help others.
Yeah.
You know, and it's part of our healing, you know, like taking this path is our healing process as well, you know, as helping other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I originally got into it. And I didn't realise very far into the process years and years ago, I was like, oh wow, I've got all my own shit to heal. And then I realised, and it's funny, it's not funny, it's ironic that a lot of healers need healing. We tend to, it's like abusers or hurt people tend to hurt people. It's either that or the opposite, is to hurt people tend to want to heal people. And when I often say to people, if you want to become a coach, you probably need to look on the inside first and do your own stuff. And that's what I did. I walked away from it, and funnily enough, I very much got a calling back into coaching 9 years later, and I resisted it until the last fucking breath.
And it still persisted, right? Cause
Have you ever heard the feather, the brick, the truck metaphor?
No.
So there's an analogy that God, if you will, if you believe that, it will give you a sign to do something, and if you ignore it, you'll get a ticket with a feather. And if you ignore it longer, you get hit with a brick. And if you ignore it, he sends a truck. And it's don't wait till the fucking truck to do what you've got to do. And I was very much at the point where a truck was going to come my way if I didn't pursue coaching again. And funnily enough, when I said yes, things just started happening. And in my other business, funnily enough, so much shit was going wrong. Like, things that should be easy were so difficult, and I was like, why is this happening? And then when I took what should have been a really hard step towards coaching again, it was made so easy, and people showed up and they're like, let me help you, here's this thing. And I was like, okay, fine.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
And you came on to Nick's podcast. Now you're here.
Yeah.
This is how it works though, right? When
Funny
are
how
you
things
going to do your podcast? What's going on?
Vivienne Dias.
Was it Tanya?
Our life is like an honestly constant podcast, I promise you.
mic you up and carry a camera around.
We should do that, actually.
Yeah.
I wanted to add too, so with our little experiment out and about,
Oh, here we go. The five
the
guys.
best I find, and I probably didn't realise straight away, but at the end of the night, our meeting originally was never about picking up. There was no phone numbers exchanged. There was no social media exchange. It was a really nice way just to get to know the opposite sex without the whole chemistry and junkie of chemicals and lust and I want to, do that at the end of the night. I thought, this is amazing. And we actually ended it saying, we'll see you at the next event, which was in 3 months' time, which it hasn't happened just yet. So it'll be interesting to see whether we see them or not. It'd be like, hey. And the other interesting thing that we spoke about afterwards was a lot of things that Viv and I knew about. They were very masculine topics and they had no idea about. And I thought, okay. It's like...
You taught them something about themselves.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the word is, whether they're sexual, like the death grip and those kind of references, which I was interested to think that, why am I so interested in it and why aren't you guys trying to find that extra information on, again, why does somebody do something, looking at their behaviour and, sexual trauma, I guess.
What was a death grip?
Death grip was one subject that had come up.
Yeah, so the death grip is a technique that men that are addicted to porn use.
Will use it.
And look.
No, down there.
So
you never heard of it?
my ex was addicted to porn. The last guy that I kind of dated, he was addicted to porn, and I came across this technique and I thought, all right, fair. Okay. I get men masturbating, but I was just like, geez, I've never seen that before.
It is what it
was literally like it's very violent.
Is it something like a clamp or something?
No, so it's masturbation technique. So it's a masturbation
just
technique.
Just with your physical hand.
I feel like I should know this being a guy.
Yeah, no, seriously. So
I've interviewed Australia's #1 BDSM woman as well, and I haven't heard this yet. So.
Men that are addicted to porn that have then lost the ability to
almost like
ejaculate,
desensitized.
right?
Yeah.
They become so desensitized to jerking off for so long. Like
They need to take it to another extreme.
Yes.
So what
So the
Yeah,
soft
so
and
it
subtle stroking doesn't do it
work.
for them anymore.
Right,
So it's
and
got
has
to be
quite aggressive.
super
and it's
hard,
called
super fast,
a death
super
grip for a
quick.
reason because it actually looks very, very violent.
Right.
And I'm just
Sounds
like,
So
geez,
them
you're gonna
just-
rip that thing off, mate.
Right.
That's a lot of stamina you need for that. Huh?
I don't know. If
That's hard.
But because they become numb,
Yeah.
you can't feel it, right? So that's why they have to get so aggressive to actually even get some feeling happening down there, and the loss of
and they lose the
ability
sense of
to-
like being able to have an orgasm through penetration.
yeah, they
Yeah.
cannot.
Because the wall barrier is just not strong enough. You can't physically.
Yeah, and then they've still got the crazy intense hormone of testosterone flowing through them, and they have to go from one extreme to the next to
Yes,
get.
and this is the thing about
biggest-
that dopamine hit, right? It's just like it's like the junkie, right, having a hit, and then it's just like more and more and more to try to get that same feeling from that first
I
hit.
guess that's why.
So with porn, the extremes that you see the
Makes
soft
sense.
porn kind of stuff, and then go to the extremes. It's just like this isn't getting me off anymore, and now I have to see.
It's like you're flooded with dopamine. So then it becomes a
yeah,
desensitization.
and you get more and more dopamine each time.
100%.
Yeah.
See, that is the interesting. Well, it's not interesting, but the problem with porn is it seems like such a subtle, incomparable drug to other things, whereas in reality, it's just as bad. It's just more accepted and so freely and easily
Because
available.
everyone's talking about
But you know
it.
that
Like, you wanna go
social
get-
media now is soft porn.
It is soft.
it
porn.
Right?
is, it
So
is.
men become desensitized when women have their boobs out, next to nothing on. What do you think's happening to men, right? That if you're seeing that day
Normal,
in
Young
normal,
and
kids,
day
my son
out,
being 12. Like,
go to the
oh
beach
boy,
now.
what's
You know,
next?
the young girls, they're 12 years old wearing G-strings on the
Oh,
freaking
right.
beach.
Oh,
You know, it's
yeah.
just like
That's-
this is that desensitization, right?
Yeah.
So what some like guys used to get off at freaking girls in bloody Best and West
In a
catalogs,
bikini.
right?
Yeah.
magazines.
Like in
Yeah.
something so like innocent, right?
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
you've just become it's
too-
in your face.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
G-strings were Brazilians. That was the
Yeah.
sexual
You know, I remember
thing,
this
right?
last guy,
it was
like,
I
he-
literally
that I
have a
was dating-
bikini to go to Bondi in without my children.
Yeah.
I have a bikini to go be a mummy in my full piece bikini. Like I just went on a cruise and I was like, that's my cruise bikini because I place and time, like where I want to be and things like that. And it's okay to put your bum out there, but time and place.
See,
Like
I can really appreciate that as a value because a lot of, again, younger women don't. They think men should just fucking deal with it. And look, I do agree, but again, you can't get mad at the scorpion for stinging. There's no excuse for anything, but it's like, the value that I appreciate in my partner is the fact that she's conservative and is aware and understands that she's a reflection of me as I am
Yes,
her.
absolutely.
And she wouldn't dare want to go do that. Not only because she values herself too much to want to just go willy-nilly like that, but she's understand that men do look. Nothing might come of it, but she's aware of men talk, men look.
of course.
And it's this self-respecting, it's a relationship respecting, and it's a respecting for me, whereas most women, again, will vilify a man for setting that standard that, honey, I expect this of you, and I'm not expecting it because I'm the fucking man, and what I say goes. It's because I have these standards, and it protects us.
Yeah.
And it's the same way that I wouldn't go fucking walking around like that in front of a bunch of women.
But you wouldn't do that obviously having your ball sack hanging out of your shorts
Exactly,
either, really.
right?
If you didn't want a woman to look.
Yeah.
You're
And-
two
Yeah.
options. Take your partner's eyeballs out of his face if you never want him to look, or cover up. You can't blame a man for looking if you're half cheeky. You're
Yeah,
sticking
but
out
come
of
on,
your
man.
shorts.
Everything is freaking sexualized.
That's
Look
it.
at
Hey,
music
this is
video
why it's so
clips.
hard.
Like it's just everywhere in
very
your
much
face.
But there's no difference, again, if you look at abuse. Like, I can be in an abusive relationship for a long time, and now I'm desensitized by violence. You become desensitized to porn, it should be looked at very similar, I think.
Yeah, well, it's all, and again, typically all comes back to a form of trauma. There's something we're typically avoiding when we're allowing something that shouldn't be happening.
Of course.
Or there's a pain that's there to be had, but it's so much easier to avoid it in porn, Again, a woman, I want a high value woman that does this and that, but I've got to get fit and I've got to have standards and I've actually got to go be able to provide for her. Fuck that. I'm just going to death grip myself to the fucking porn. Like,
So it's all fucked up.
It literally is. But again, this is, and I've been thinking about this question a long time, but like, what is the biggest problem with dating over, you know, in your over 40s is that either they don't know what their standards are and they want to show up perfect, which doesn't exist, and we know that. So why can't we just find and choose? Everything's a choice, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a choice, you know. I hate when people say, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I'm like, you do.
It's a comfortable lie people
Very,
tell themselves.
yeah. So I want to choose my soulmate and be like, let's choose to be together and do this life together because no one is perfect. But why not stick it out with somebody rather than trying to find a new person and get a little tickle and validation and the drugs from?
What's important, I think, and this is probably a handy conversation to have with particularly older men, because older men, I'm finding younger men are more comfortable with this stuff and getting into it, whereas the older men are, the more set in their ways are.
I agree.
A comfortable conversation, and this is when knowledge is power, is for older men to know there's 3 stages to a relationship, and they typically get afraid of the second stage. And it's so this first is honeymoon phase, where it's the free drug stage and it's easy, and then we enter the power struggle where we kind of we become each other's mirror, very much so. Typically when I'm saying you're, you know, too detached, that's something that I've got to deal with. And typically when you're saying you know, don't love enough, you don't take me enough, this usually there's roots in the issue we have with the other partner and ourselves. And when we heal them and talk and communicate, and there's just 2 things, communicate and honesty, we very quickly find out we're compatible and we can work it out, or that we're not compatible and we shouldn't be together, and you can end it peacefully. But if men know that we're meant to have this second stage, known as the power struggle, and it's where we learn about each other and we're meant to get uncomfortable, and through that process we're able to heal and learn more about each other and how to compensate for each other's inadequacies and instead use them as opportunities to get connected, because typically where there's a wound, there's a way to be connected to as well. Like if you're afraid of being abandoned and then you somewhat ideally heal the issue, but if not, if your partner learns through this power struggle phase of going through these arguments and you make it through because you prioritize communication and honesty, you inevitably get to a point where I know what triggers you, I know why you get triggered, I know when you start detaching from me, I've asked you enough time what's wrong and I've figured it out, I go, I know what she needs and I can give it to you, and eventually what happens is your nervous system that's conditioned to be a certain way doesn't respond the same way or react, the same way, because one day I've actually done something different. I've said, hey, come here. And you're like, oh, what? Like, say there's all these pretty women around and for whatever reason there's an insecurity around that. Instead of looking, I've actually in advance come to you and brought you over and let's all talk to this girl. You go, oh my God, he knows. My trauma wasn't triggered there, or it was, but it was immediately suppressed and eased and soothed. That's what happens towards the back end of the power struggle phase. And once we've done that enough for each other, we enter the beautiful and the final stage, which is the mature love phase. And a lot of older men aren't aware that it's going to be easy and then it's going to get hard and then it'll get better.
You just got to work hard for that drug, right?
Yeah.
That came so naturally on stage 1. You got to work for the drug.
Understand that drug is a taste test of what you will get and more later on, provided you're willing to do the work. And that's the thing, these men have got to recognize relationships are work, but they're the most worthwhile work you'll ever do. And eventually it does become effortless and easy, but it just requires a bit of effort. And that's probably why we have that first infatuation stage, I reckon, so that life, the universe, God can give us a bit of a taste of what we're in for. But it's also like, you're about to go through some shit. Here's the pain.
Maintain it.
Go through the pain.
So my partner and I broke up at stage 2.
Most relationships enter and then live and die in stage 2. Because they aren't aware that all this shit getting brought up is, I don't like to say challenge, but it's
uncomfortable.
It's an uncomfortable thing that has to happen. Like everything in life, this is why I say there's very few constants. Change is a constant, and pain. There is always going to be pain. If you can accept life is synonymous with pain, and relationships are the ultimate form of life, so there's fucking more pain, then there's also more pleasure. It's just get comfortable with the pain and don't run with it, deal with it, because it's dealt with now on your terms, not later on, and you haven't got fucking beach balls popping up everywhere like you talked about.
Then you got you, Dan and Viv at the beach again and playing with each other's balls. And it's all wonderful and lovely.
Do you have balls?
No.
Not anymore.
Just let them all up,
Yeah.
But you know, like, I don't think that it's just for older men. Like, you know, we're in our 40s. For the last, since my marriage ended, I've only dated younger men. 10 to 15
So I never,
years.
and I never
younger.
have, right?
Yeah. I'm still waiting for my silver fox. God damn it, I'm sick of the boys. I'm sick of the freaking boys, but they tend to come my way.
Because
So I'm just
you're a
like,
gilf, like you said, right?
Can I ask you a question? What sort of the younger gentlemen you're attracting? Is there a pattern that you see in them? Are they more in their feminine over time? Do you find?
every single man that I've been with has been in their feminine.
I wonder what there is in that for you then.
I know. I was
Yeah.
in my masculine for many years,
And
so
do you
it's obviously that attraction. It's like the anxious and avoidant, attachment style. So I was in my masculine for many years, obviously attracting the feminine, and I'm very clear of it now. So it's just like,
Is this healing and leaning into your feminine more of a recent thing for you now still?
probably over the last few years now,
Yeah.
like really dropping into my feminine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can just look back and I'm just, even though I thought that I was in my feminine, it was slow progress, slow changes were happening, stepping more and more into my feminine, but I think that I'm much more in my feminine now.
Yeah.
And so now those kind of men just repulse me.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just like, I'm put off.
It's interesting how what you're attracted to changes as you do your healing work. And that's most people aren't attracted to their partner, they're attracted to their trauma.
Yeah, it's so
I heard the concept of wound ships, right? So they're not relationships, they're wound ships.
Oh, okay. Wound ships.
And I love
Wound
that
ships.
because I
And trauma
believe in
bonding,
it. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I'm the biggest
the
trauma
jobs.
bonder.
Sorry?
I admit I'm the biggest trauma bonder.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You jump straight into it.
Well, I realised a lot with my ex-husband too. So we got back together many, many times, and he had a car accident actually, and the other person had died. But at the time, I thought he died, and so I went back. I thought he died, and it was a bit traumatic. But I went back to my counsellor, the one that had actually got me out of my DV marriage. And I said, I don't know why I'm back with him. I don't understand, And she said, I'll give you 4 sessions to work it out. And it took me 2 sessions. And I realised that I went back because I wanted the power back from him that I lost in my DV marriage, He had a girlfriend at the time and I said, get rid of her. You're going to choose me. That's how it's going to be. We're a family unit. Let's stick it back together. It lasted a whole hot 3 weeks because I was there for the wrong reasons, clearly. And I guess he was focused on his family unit more than anything, but I wanted my power back that I lost. And that's at stage 2 of the power struggle and whatever, But that was okay. To realise that, it was fine.
100%, yeah. Well, and again, it wasn't the relationship failed, it was that it completed and you got what you wanted to it for.
Trauma bonding. I was so trauma bonded. He literally had a trauma because I thought he died, but I was still...
Threw yourself in there.
Yeah, I was still, like... I was just there for
What I would add to that is typically the reason I would say that instigated you to want to go back is probably because you didn't end the relationship with closure. And when we don't have closure and we see an opportunity to go back and get it, we typically do.
Yeah.
And that's true healing or anything really. To progress and move on, we need closure and certainty. And to the degree that we don't have it is to the degree that we're impacted and affected by it.
Because there's a lot of talk around, like, do we need closure? Do we really need it? Your opinion?
Yeah, I think at large, yes. There's certain circumstances, no. And there's certain circumstances where you'll never get closure. But even still then, if you can find a way to get it, absolutely. Closure just means understanding, I think. It comes back to understanding. And as we talked about earlier, with understanding comes empathy. When you feel empathy, you can't synonymously feel empathy and anger. You can't feel... Same as, like, that's the way they say, if you can be appreciative of something, you're in a great place because you can't feel appreciation and sadness or hurt or guilt or fear. So if you can feel empathy, you can move on from something. Yeah. And I think that's if there's anything other than empathy and understanding, then that's a trauma to some degree and it's having an impact on you.
And you can understand and disagree at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can. Oh yeah, understanding doesn't mean agreeing by any means. Like, I might punch someone in the face for doing something wrong. It doesn't mean it was right, but you can understand why I done it.
And your partner can say,
Perfect example is if someone goes to break into your house and you go down and knock them out, only to turn the light on and realize it was your friend who was actually using a key to get in, and you forget you told him it's okay to come in. It's like, oh, wow. I know why you punched me, but bro, you know I was coming home, remember? And it's like, shit, I forgot, sorry, and I was tired and asleep, and I thought you were robbing the place. You can shoot someone thinking, someone's being attacked, but really it was, a movie scene playing out and acted. And so just because an action seemed appropriate doesn't mean it was right or
Yeah, that's
agreeable.
right.
Yeah.
But you can understand, like, to get closure from an ex-partner and be like, okay, thank you for the reassurance or the communication about it. I disagree with how you went about it, but I
Yeah.
still have empathy and to say, hey,
Yeah.
you do you, boo. You know what I mean in that sense?
Closure in that regard, I wouldn't say you need it from the partner. You need it from yourself. And what that looks like is, for example, let's use domestic violence for an example. If I would say to the woman, you absolutely need closure to move on from that. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat it and look for those same patterns in that guy and attract another guy like it.
Yeah.
So until you get closure, not around why he did it, but why you tolerated and stuck around, there's a trauma there that made you so afraid of him losing, of you losing him, that you thought the abuse was worse than being alone.
Yeah, or safer than actually leaving.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, that's one example. It could be a million reasons, but it could be such an abandonment issue as a kid, or actually, this is a real example. A woman had such low self-worth and hated herself so much, like her internal self-talk was fucking horrific. And she fought me on it until I said to her one day, I was like, what if you spoke to your daughter like that? And she went, fuck. I was like, you have an inner daughter that you're speaking to all the time, and that impacts how you show up for yourself, and therefore it determines what you will allow in the outside world to happen to you. And what we figured out was, no matter how much she was abused, it didn't seem worse than how bad she'd abused herself. And she felt lucky that she was with him, even though he abused her, because she was like, he loves me even though I'm so shit. This abuse is actually not that
because
bad.
Because her internal dialogue was worse.
Yeah, she's like, I'm horrible. I'm lucky he's not beating me more. Was literally her perception of it all. And I was like, would you adopt that same belief model for your daughter? She was like, no, it's different. I'm like, why is it different? And it finally got back to this point of just, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And when we healed that wound, I think it was, it was weeks, and she was done with that relationship. And she couldn't understand how she stuck around in that relationship because it didn't make fucking sense. But when you are so gripped and held by trauma, and when it has when a trauma has a grip on you, it has a grip on you. And typically we're unaware of it, unfortunately, and we live in an environment that supports that trauma or force you to address it eventually. But often we numb it with porn or drugs or alcohol or something and keep tolerating it far too long into the future.
The word trauma gets thrown around a lot too.
A hell of a lot, yeah. Or
You know, like,
triggered. I'm triggered. I'm
like
trauma bonded. Or
like, it's true, but like going back to the old, how do they deal with it?
People confuse trauma and offense.
They went through worse.
Yeah, 100%. Well, here's the interesting thing on that. So I've got two views on it. This is one of those areas where it's not black and white, it's quite grey. As a kid, you can get sexually abused, and it's a trauma. A kid can not be loved by mum in a certain way because she controlled him too much and decided what he wore all the time. And it's not us that imprints the trauma on us, it's our brain. So I like to refer to us as a computer. We have a form of programming, and we can actually program ourselves. And our brain can be just as traumatized by that as what the other kid can, because it's not about what happens, but it's about the meaning that we attach to what happens. If my mum doesn't love me, is the same definition as when a kid's being sexually abused. My parents don't love me because they know this is happening and they're not stopping it, or dad's doing it.
Yeah.
The meaning is the same. Therefore, the nervous system, either way, our life's at threat too. Because if you're 6, you gotta remember right now, if someone doesn't love us, whatever, as a kid, you are literally dependent on those people, and the world is a saber-toothed tiger. Like, everything can kill you. So you genuinely feel at risk if you're not loved in a certain way. So in that sense, traumas are pretty easy to come by and pretty significant. It's later in life where it becomes a bit bullshit, and people are like, oh, I was traumatized by him looking at me that way. And it's like, shut up, you're offended, and just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the fuck up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it's that grooming of the majority going around on social platforms that people just go, oh, they, not the, 1.2 million people agreed with it because they. So we're all going to agree with it, but like understand it. Like my children, they're only 6 and 8, but they say things that they have no idea what the meaning is. And I say, baby, you know what that means? I don't know, Mum. I said, we probably shouldn't be using those words that we have no idea what it's about, right? But again, it's social
Conditioning.
Conditioning and acceptance and coolness. And, again, I'm not a boy, but I'm trying to understand my boys, why they do certain things to fit in as a boy, even a man when they get older. It's so grooming.
We're not just dealing with the household now, it's like social.
Oh, it's social. It's
That's what they cop it because they're friends, or they speak to people and they cop it, and then
But they know a hell of a lot more than what we did as little people.
Oh, man.
My son will say to my other
That's
son, "Oh,
smart.
you're gay," and I'll be like,
Oh, that's come back to
"I
me.
don't know what that is,
Catch the
honey." And
ball.
I'll be the dumbest parent in the planet. I say, "I have no idea what that is." My older sister is gay, right? So, you know, Mum, da 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 da, and he gives the most accurate description of gayness, and I'm like, "Shit me, how do you know that already?"
Yeah.
Right? And again, like that level of how do you control that information that's being fed through their fingertips consistently, so, you know, like, it's scary.
You know, and but that what you're saying is what you're saying about like traumas being thrown around there. It's awareness. That's what it's in our face now. We
It's
are
in
aware
our
of
face
it.
constantly.
You know, the older generation, our parents' generation, grandparents' generation. This is shit that wasn't talked about. You don't
Yeah.
talk about shit like this.
But they dealt with it. See,
They-
us talking
Did they
about it-
really? But you know, like I think that you know,
Yeah, that's
passing
true. Yeah.
on traumas to their own children is because they suppress that
Yeah,
shit.
I
You know,
guess so.
And they
Like,
swept it under the carpet.
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
That
Yeah,
caused
took
trauma
it out
into
of
their
abuse.
children. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like it's not that they ever dealt with it. Dealing with it is healing, right?
Yeah.
And looking at it and acknowledging it. But if you're sweeping it under the rug, man, that's
Yeah.
causing a whole heap of other problems.
And if you look at back, you know, I'll use my grandparents for an example. Domestic violence was common. There was actually, there's news articles about how it was frowned upon doing it past, I think it was 8 or 9 p.m. because it disturbed neighbours' sleep. My nan was telling me about this. Like, I was like, "Are you kidding?" She's like, "No, it was normal to beat your woman
Yes.
back then." And it's what I've come to, like, my thesis is that we had the right model back then of, like, you know, the masculine feminine polarity working, and majority of women did want to be the homekeeper. But the problem is women were isolated back then.
Yeah.
And men had untold power that they abused. And that's why we had the right model, but we had the wrong people.
Yeah.
Women needed more community and more women to be women with.
Yes.
And men needed men to keep fucking men accountable, because without men keeping men accountable and having shame, like, I think shame's a beautiful thing to have, because men can shame people into doing the right thing, or men shame other men into doing the right thing. And without men there to keep other men accountable to a higher standard, shit happens like back then.
Yeah.
You know, man in the house, I've been out working all day, woman's at home keeping it well, for my kids are good, I'm going to go to the pub, I'm going to cheat, I'm going to get drunk, I'm going to go home and abuse her and take my shit on her because I'm depressed and I don't really want to be doing this, but this is what you do as a man, you shut the fuck up and you work.
That's right.
And it's, yeah, like, as traumatized as they were, they also fucking were. Like, and I'm seeing it in my grandparents, and
Yeah.
I guess doing a study that I have, and you would see it too, like, it's so, you see trauma like that.
Yeah.
You see someone laugh in a social situation at something, you go, that's you shrugging something off.
Yeah.
You see someone go, oh, it's gay. Wow, look how uncomfortable you are with that all of a sudden. It's, you see trauma everywhere. It's a buzzword that gets thrown around too much, but also I think it's probably in a way not addressed enough as well. Like, I think every significant issue someone has in their life usually comes back to some form of trauma. I think it's not that it's used too much, but it's just used in the wrong way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think that
absolutely.
it's a buzzword, because what else are you going to call it? How else are you going to
An
describe
unresolved
it? You know?
wound, that's just a shit way of
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
it. Still bleeding?
It was still bleeding, right?
I was on room coach.
Yeah, trauma coach, that's why we use the word. It's just easy to explain.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like what you're saying about your grandparents, back in those days, it was normal. Like, it was okay for men to abuse their wives. It's like there was a time where it was okay to smoke cigarettes, and doctors would prescribe it and do all these things.
Pregnant
you know?
women too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing,
There's
just 'cause-
commercials saying
Now
if you're
times
stressed
have
out, go and
changed,
have a
right?
smoke. There's commercials made like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because something's normal doesn't mean it's normal.
That's
Or it's okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like, imagine if there was 10 men all abusing their wife, the 11th one comes in, he doesn't go, oh, it's normal, I'll do it too. It's not, yeah.
Well, the
It's-
new statistic, the highest form of DV is on a Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m.
Really?
geez, that's
Don't
pretty
know why.
specific.
Before the week starts.
They're stressing out going
Sunday
back.
Sunday,
Right.
4
I know they're
p.m.,
coming down
geez.
from Saturday nights and it's now Sunday afternoon.
probably is.
No idea, but it's 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon is the busiest for DV, apparently. So from 8 to 9 p.m., what was your statistics back in? You said 8 or 9 p.m.
Let's
at
add a full
night?
moon into that.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Is it a super blue moon though, or a full moon, or a
Full moon, I mean, lunatics, paramedics and police are the
What's
busiest.
today? What's special about
That
today?
is true,
11
actually. It's a real
Yeah,
statistic.
Remembrance
it is
Day.
the busiest time
but
for them.
also
Yeah, the,
the
sun
most
influences our mood, the moon.
Well, the moon, controls the waters. We're 70% water, emotions, and that's why the emotions get so heightened when it's a full moon. People start being really emotional, erratic.
I feel it. Yeah.
Everyone, we're all human.
We can barely handle one emotion at a time. Imagine when they all come bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah, and
just
that's
like, shit,
this
me,
is
I
the
don't know what to do
problem,
with
right?
all
So
of these.
if nature is having an impact on us, bringing up this surge of emotions, and you don't have the skills or tools to be able to process it, what do you think you're doing? You're projecting that out onto the people that you love, right? That are around you. You know, you're hurting your freaking loved ones, you know, because you don't know. Oh my God, I don't know what to do with this.
Undiagnosed ADHD at 39. I'm emotionally so unregulated. It's not funny. My oldest son is ADHD. My second, Phoenix, is well on his way to be through learnt behaviour.
Why is that so common?
Who, ADHD?
Isn't this trauma?
Would
you agree with that?
I can give my opinion on it. I just want to be mindful to be, I guess, respectful with it. Like I personally, and I've learned this from Dr. Tad and Adriana James, that ADHD doesn't necessarily exist the way we believe it exists. And I say this respectfully because I don't have to deal with it, and I know how fucking hard it can be. I've seen it, and I think I was at one point diagnosed as ADHD as a kid, and then no, he's not. I think we over-process information in a way that's not appropriate for the environment we're in. So a lot of ADHD kids in school, the pattern I've seen is they're first off jacked up on sugar. So that's a lot of parents are like neglectful in that way. I doubt that's you. I can imagine you're very health conscious and look after your kids. So for a lot of people, it's just the kid is literally jacked up on sugar that's fucking them up, and their brain's operating like they're on Ritalin or on cocaine or something.
On the gadgets.
The other and they're genuinely being conditioned to be a different way. I would also say that certain kids, they learn auditorily, kinesthetically, or visually, and the school system is optimized for visual and auditory, not kinesthetic. I am a very kinesthetic learner. I have 2 trades under my belt, and it's no irony that in school I was really good at engineering, woodwork, and metalwork. But you put me in maths, English, and all the rest of it, I performed very poorly until later in my years when I really disciplined myself, and it was so fucking hard to learn. Whereas other kids could hear something once and they'd remember it. And they were optimized to learn one way, which is what the system's built for, whereas a lot of other people were optimized another way. And then if you put a kid who's a very kinesthetic learner and tell them to sit down and be still, of course they're going to go fucking nuts because their attention's going to be on this, not on that. And there's been a lot of studies, and it's frustrating that I can't exactly quote them. They're out there, and I'm going to remember them for future reference, but there's studies where they showed these kids how to be kinesthetically stimulated while learning, and their grades went through the roof, and they performed like normal students. So I'm sure it exists, but I think, if there's 100 students that are ADHD, I would say 80% of them aren't actually. It's just wrong learning environment, dietary, and also psychological, like some form of trauma or fucked up environment.
But I think if you take it it's a little bit further back, if our school system is not implementing these different ways to learn, because we all learn differently, then we're really preparing our kids not to fulfill it, come to our full fruition, because you got frustrated, hyper focused or distractive kids, or they really can't sit still because they've had a bowl of Fruit Loops for breakfast and they're all high on sugar, right? Like, again, and everyone is, it's respectful to their own opinions, obviously. But if your brain is a little bit wired and you learn differently, then where's the support from our school system to say, okay, how are we going to teach all these different kind of learners?
Got lazy, you reckon? They just drug them up.
And I think it comes down again, you go to this side of the extension, whereas if there wasn't doctors who, could diagnose as ADHD, then I can't give you Ritalin, and then Mr. Farmer there goes a little bit broke and he gets upset. So let's just make everybody unhealthy, but let's plant the seed of that you have something wrong with you, or you have this diagnosis. Because, when I thought about it for myself, the first person I rang was my mom, and I said, Mom, I think I'm ADHD. And she said, well, that would make sense. So why do you say that for, man? Why, like, you couldn't have told me when I was little?
I'd say it's like having a snot hanging off your nose. 40 years. Like, you could have told me how to book.
Yeah, and I guess I was curious in my own behaviour, and then I would look through my adolescence, and I was that kid that would pick and poke people, and I'm one of 3 sisters, and I've got a twin sister. So having a twin also, you're compared your entire living life. Even though we are fraternal, we don't look the same. But I was always a black sheep. I always stood out. I was always annoying. I couldn't shut up. I couldn't sit still.
And you also you wouldn't have been taught how to regulate your nervous system, and therefore the way you behave gets reinforced by doing it over and over again.
That's
and
right.
Then what we do
you're
repeatedly.
You're too much. You're too loud. You don't stop talking, Michelle.
We're a sponge. We're absorbing all this as a belief system.
Yeah.
And that's
Same
what
thing.
that's what gets people there. It's not just trauma, like
It's conditioning almost.
yeah,
Like,
100%.
conditioning along the way.
Repeat it enough times and
Yeah.
you'll believe it. It's why the churches say you give me a child to the age of 7 and he'll belong to the church for life, because you condition them well enough in the first 7 years.
yeah.
And they typically believe it.
Well,
And
0 to 7, isn't that, your
Yeah.
subconscious, imprint happening?
I don't know how true this is, but it's said that you don't have a conscious brain or that faculty up until the age of 7. So you were taking everything in from 0 to 7. And true or not, that first 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of your programming and traumas and issues and belief systems and values are all developed there. And
Whatever's imprinted in that time, that's how you're operating for the rest of your life until you become conscious of these patterns and change it.
9 times out of 10 when I'm doing trauma work with people and when I say what's the root cause of the event and we work with their subconscious mind to get back to it, it's almost like it's before 7. It's like 1, 2, 5, 6.
And then you think about it, right? A lot of people wouldn't even have a conscious memory of that time in their life. So it's just like, oh, do you remember what happened when you were 7? And people, I mean, I'm like that. I'm like, no, I don't remember. So how are you changing things if you are not conscious of them?
Yeah.
It's going to be, and that's why people are operating from these programs, living their life from them and just totally being unaware. You have to go all the way back and you have to somehow kind of remember.
But do you really go all the way back really until you hit to about our age and then we're 40s and we have to reparent ourselves and go and figure all this shit along the way because you're not going to be super conscious at the age of, say, 25 because your brain's just landed in and it's fully developed, right? My 8-year-old will say, Mum, I'm not 25. My brain hasn't fully developed, and he uses what I say to him against me, right? And they're getting too smart.
Yeah.
And I'll say, baby, like that's like you're being manipulative. Please don't use that language towards me, Yeah. But my mom actually said my mom loves with conditions that took a long time to work this out, right?
Wow, yeah.
But my mum said to me something really interesting. She said, Michelle, when you were in grade 4, your teacher, Mr. Tilden, did something. And I thought, what did he do, Mum? And it took me forever to work this thing out. She goes, after Mr. Tilden was your teacher, I could no longer control you. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. Again, I go away curious, thinking about it. And I think, and you can help me with this, Clay, but Mr. Tilden made me feel safe to be myself rather than being controlled as a little person up until that age. Because I would say, Mum, was I a difficult baby? Was I annoyed? She said, no, you were great up until grade 4.
What? And then that's when you became a pain?
Yeah, too much, too annoying, too loud. Da-da-da-da.
Right.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if something's changed and she associated it with the teacher, so you were good until then.
Yeah, I was compliant till then.
Yeah.
I brought it out of you.
It's
for a
interesting.
cool teacher. But you.
Well, see, I would even question your mum's state. What changed
like a
in
bad
her?
thing.
You know what I mean? Like what?
Well, she
what
no longer
was-
had control.
No, I think
Yeah, but is
personally
she
for herself,
misdiagnosing the root cause of the issue? Like, is it she's saying what changed? Oh, you got a new teacher now, it's him. Maybe she started doing something different and she's looked at external factors to point the blame towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the teacher... and the beautiful thing is working with the unconscious mind, you do get answers.
Yeah.
It's just getting comfortable and building that relationship with your unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And you don't have to consciously remember, which is good.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the healing, I've helped people go back to stuff and they go, did this really happen? I'm like, whether it happened or not doesn't matter. It's how your subconscious mind encodes it and remembers it, and remember the reality, imagination, doesn't matter. If you're going back to a root cause of an event and that's what your brain's saying happened, true or not, that's what your brain took away from it. It's a meaning it's given it. So let's heal that and see what happens. And typically, well, not typically, 100% of the time, trauma's healed, we show up more free, and then the outside world all of a sudden starts being different because we're showing up different. And it's interesting. A lot of parents do that. A lot of parents say, oh, this happened to you at this age and that's why you become that. And then we go, okay, that's what happened. And we accept that condition and therefore...
Well, I've just been trying to figure it out, right? My mum possibly couldn't figure it out. She's not an emotional, expressive person also. But you're right. Maybe she kind of pointed the direction into my way, but something really happened over here. She projected without knowingly.
This is something I even recognise with my own relationship with my mum, right? To her behaviour. And my mum had her first child when she was 14, right? 14, 17, 19. So I was number 3. And But when me and my sisters were young, we're at home, we're virgins, young girls, and she started projecting. You're all sluts, you're all these, calling us.
Oh,
Calling us
that's what she
sluts.
felt at your age.
Exactly. It took me years because here we are going, no, Mum,
Wow.
haven't slept with anyone. Like, she was a nut job around it, right? Just constantly projecting. We had no understanding of it.
Wow.
It
That's
took years
traumatizing.
for me to realize that, going, oh, wow, because she had started having sex quite young, had children young. These two siblings were not part of our growing up. You know? And it took years. And when it landed, I was just like, oh, she just projected
Yeah.
her own shit.
And see
onto us
that
to blame.
stuff like that, you were saying, like a lot of the life, there was the giver personality and towards others as well. At that age, Mum kind of abandoned you and you had to sacrifice of yourself to prove something to her to get her love. And that can very easily become our relationship process or model where we go, okay, I need to prove I love them. They're going to assume the worst about me and I need to do this. And that it's crazy how something like that can create lifelong issues in relationships as well, until we go, oh, where's the perspective? What's the lesson from that? And then sometimes people get that, but what happens is they don't let go of the emotion because I guess it's a technology. Like phones have evolved from bricks, like we said, to these things that can, like there's more computing power in that now than there was what launched the first rocket ship. So there's psychic technology that's evolved now, and we kind of need to be taught that shit in school to heal trauma because it shapes us, unfortunately, and we're wired to be that way as well. It's what, if we were cavemen back in the day, it's like it makes sense that trauma helped us learn lessons very quick to not go certain ways because this line's that way, and we just remember now because we see something that looks like a sign last time and we know. Then you don't end up dead.
Because then we'll stop having to reparent ourselves by the time we hit our 40s. So we need you, Clay, to go plant the seed to go into the school system really young and go like double yourself up and get it in whilst our babies are still young and sponges and learning and things like that. Because I mean, you know, it could sound like I'm projecting and blaming something else, but
well, no, it's. I think it's a root cause. The root cause is a broken system that doesn't teach us the instruction manual that is how to be a human. Like we're not that fucking complicated. Like as humans, we have emotions that shape how we see the world. The reality of like this is my very black and white view on it, which may evolve over time and change. But right now, we could all look at a piece of art and all four of us would see something very different. But we're looking at the exact same fucking thing. The difference is perspective. What shapes our perspective? It's our past experiences, which are made, so it's memories that are made up of opinions, the environment we're in. The environment we're in has something like 11 million bits of information per second, every second that we get hit with. And our brain filters it down to 128 bits. So we get like a slither of reality. But the reality is shaped again by our past, our individual beliefs, like our interpretations of things. And so it's like we all get the same bit of light coming in, but you have a blue filter, you have a red one, you have a pink one, you have an orange one. And the light that comes out the other side, same light coming in, is very different coming out. And if we can clear and cleanse those filters so that they're accurate and as true to reality as possible, then we're healthy, happy humans, not at 30, not at 20, but in real time growing up. And we have accurate models of the world.
that would be amazing.
It starts at childhood and emotional regulation and what I call like uncomfortable truths or universal truths. There are out there. There's very few of them. There's a lot of methods to get to them, but there's very few principles that are true universally. And if we could all get on the same fucking page as that.
See, that's what the path of yoga is, right? It's about cleaning the lens, right? So the layers, the experiences that we have created these layers, layer upon layer upon layer, right? And usually a lot of blockages, belief systems that are not true for us anymore, you know, our programming, our conditioning. And so yoga is this journey of going in so you can start to filter out and you can start to take away the layers
and so
that are blocking you. You can clear, it's like driving with a dirty windscreen. All those layers, you know, you're driving, you can't see properly. That's our perspective, right? So someone that has trauma and a lot of pain and suffering, negativity in their life, they're seeing the world as a very dark place, horrible place. But when you start to strip away those layers, then it becomes clearer. And then you can see the beauty that's there in the world, right? 100%. Your perspective has to be cleared.
And I love the presupposition there is that it's layers that are on us. When you take them off, what's left is perfect. We're all perfect. It's not that we're shit as humans, it's that we end up with shit on us. And as you said, like the light that gets through is minimalized or reduced because of the layers that reduce it coming in.
See, when we experience pain, right, we build those walls up. The walls up to protect our heart, right? One of the most vulnerable parts in us. We build the wall. But when we're building the wall to block, right, that's what we're trying to do, protect ourselves. It's the armor that we wear. We're trying to block the pain or anyone from hurting us. But then what we're doing at the same time is blocking what is inherent to us, all the beauty, all the goodness, all the love, all the happiness from...
To receive.
No, to actually let it flow out of you, because it's inside of us. We've got a well of it just wanting to flow out of us. But if we've got all these walls up, we're blocking, but then we're stopping from,
That comes with fear too,
But that's what fear is, Fear is putting up those walls and the protection.
And then it goes into the relationship.
And that's what you were saying before about your process, that you have to go through like anger, before you get to the shame and the guilt, which is down the bottom. This is that layering, right? Yeah. You have to touch on the anger, because anger is usually up here, right? And then under
Anger's
the anger,
easy.
anger, underneath the anger, is probably sadness, grief. Because
absolutely.
once you get past the angry phase, people are just going to start bawling their eyes out and then start to feel this real deep sense of sadness.
And there's ironically an intelligence to it, because if we did shame first, but we haven't done anger, imagine how angry we could get over certain things that we're ashamed of or that have happened to us. There's an intelligence to healing, often.
Yeah. So when that's going through that layering process,
and it can seem fucking frustrating, because sometimes people on a healing journey, you heal some big thing and you have a profound breakdown and you're like, I'm clear, and 2 weeks later the next fucking issue pops up and you go, what the fuck is going on?
I love that.
And
You said it before too, like people, if you want to heal like real quick, is like go get into another relationship, because people then are groomed around saying, you have to be healed to before you start a new relationship. I probably blocked myself for way too long. I wasn't ready for a relationship. I said, no, I'm going to heal myself, thinking that I had pretty good. Then I got into a relationship and I was like, oh my gosh.
Very quickly shit.
See, I've been that
triggering
serial
shit out of me.
relationship person. So, going from one relationship to another relationship to
We
another
kind of did
relationship.
it backwards then, you and I.
Yeah, which is great, because now I can see it where I'm at right now. I'm happy doing me. I'm happy because now I'm having the best relationship with myself.
Yeah, and to touch on that, there's a common thing people say is like, I want to go find my other half. There is no such thing as another half. It's you as a complete person who's meant to connect with another complete person.
100%.
It creates its own separate entity, which becomes the relationship, which requires its own form of nurturing and loving and looking after, as well as your own. You don't complete anyone and no one completes you. It's like you are, and I don't believe in soulmates. I think you create a soulmate.
Say that.
The soulmate.
Twin flame, soulmates. Like that.
And look, if we do have them, if we have a soulmate, it implies souls. I think we've fucking probably connected with many souls.
Absolutely. That's what soulmates are.
Yeah,
there are many people who...
People just choose one.
This soulmate in this lifetime might be a fucking arsehole.
Yeah.
Whereas this one in this lifetime, it's like, we're meant to be connected.
All the fairy tales that we've ever been told,
That's
all the
generation.
movies, and then we romanticize all these
It's
fantasies.
romanticising
It's
it,
romanticized.
right?
Films,
Hollywood's fucked up the idea of relationships.
Oh, 100%.
They're not work. Love is instant.
Yep.
No, biggest load of shit.
Yeah.
Infatuation is instant and attraction is instant. But you could be attracted to a million people. And you could want to date all of them until you find out what they really like.
Yeah.
And very quickly that million turns into one.
I'm the biggest romanticizer. I love a good love story and all that kind of stuff. And I think with my marriage, especially 6 months before we were getting married, what I didn't do was look at the reality. Look what was right in front of me. I looked at the wedding, the 300 people, disappointing them, but I didn't actually look at the reality that was going on inside my four walls, because I wanted the romantic part of my story to come to fruition. I wanted
look at
that.
Cinderella. Like, what happened next chapter? I'm like, what did the prince do?
But see, this is
Happily
but
ever
this.
after. I don't know.
Yeah,
The
but see,
maid
this is
comes
what
in, you know,
young women, young girls are being programmed this way.
She
This
gets
is the problem.
Sorry, she gets the shits and she goes back to scrubbing the floor.
No, but this
She's
is
probably
the
happy
problem.
scrubbing the floor because
Yeah.
she's just like she's
Simple.
not bothered.
with her animals and
I
that's
don't
it.
know.
Yeah, fuck you, Prince. Yeah,
Girls are being programmed with these fairy tales.
Constantly.
With these fairy tales. So
Constantly.
Cinderella is just like,
Th-
find your
that-
Prince Charming.
Yeah.
So girls are growing up like this going, okay, if I get the man and then I'm going to marry him and I'm going to get the house and then I'm going to have the kids and then I'm going to live happily ever
The
after.
guys were the
And
same.
then they get all the things and they're still not happy.
Because innately,
And then they wonder why they're not happy.
It's all the external things that are filling their cup because they've never been taught how to fill up their own cup up until this point.
Well, it's that programming that you
Yeah.
need to have all these things to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're also getting it from somebody else.
Yeah.
You're not getting it from yourself.
Love your view on this too, because in that, I've had this conversation before. Where I say, look at the implication in the programming from these movies as well. It's the girl never has to do anything. She's perfect as she is, and as much as I believe we're all perfect as we are without all layers, you still have to do shit. Love is first off effort. So by nature, you can't just be perfect as a woman. He's gonna come love me and I do nothing. That's great. He's gonna enjoy your radiant beauty until he goes, okay, I like my core masculine values such as devotion and appreciation and recognition and respect. You're doing nothing to fulfill them. The man will eventually go cheat or something. Like if we don't have our core needs met, someone always cheats or leaves or something happens. Where was I with that? The implied thing in the movie. Connection. Effort. It comes back to women. Yeah, we might have to cut that one because there was a
Like,
point.
is it what is our responsibility
We
in
only
the
got 3
effort?
hours.
Oh shit!
We're going for 3 hours.
Oh yeah, wow.
That's why you're getting tired.
Wow. Yeah, I'm like, where
getting
is this going?
tired.
My question, Clay, is what if somebody doesn't know what their core needs are?
That's something I want to put out there and create as a template to say, here, read it. So
Can you send it
I've
to every
just-
male on the planet and
yeah,
female?
yeah.
Or say
So I've just created the
That's what we're
model.
doing.
human.
And what I love is I've spent in excess of 60 grand, probably closer to 100 in terms of like personal development and seminars and training. And I've learned, it's been a lifetime of learning. For me, it's entertainment now, like learning, watching seminars, all that. And there's a lot out there, and I've kind of put a lot of things together that are a combination of my stuff, what I believe, but also like experts that have lived a lifetime to build up one model, and that model ironically ties in with this person's model. And there's the real simple thing to look at is like Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. Like there's certainty, and then there's the polar opposite, which is uncertainty. And that's, for example, those two alone for women are it's the biggest fuck up for men. They'll come in and provide too much certainty sometimes, and they bore the shit out of the woman and have no variety, no fun, no spontaneity. They're core human needs, but they also double up as core feminine needs. Men don't necessarily need fun and variety. It's just not a core masculine need. We need respect. We absolutely need devotion, which so many men are afraid to ask for and ashamed to ask for, because how dare you say I need to be devoted to you and prove it and show it? That's most young women's attitude. But it's a core masculine need, which if left unmet, we don't show up right. Therefore, you don't feel our love and our presence, and therefore you stop showing up for us, and then we get bitter and angry, and it's just this downward spiral. So this core needs, which if we fulfill, if you've got the core needs taken care of, you will have someone who loves and worships the ground you work on. And then there's personal needs, which they're the last on the hierarchy, which is why relationships exist where women will say to their girlfriends, and there'll be a whole group of like 10 girls, and this one dating this absolute asshole. And you go, why are you with him? He treats you like shit. It's because he fills enough of the core needs, such as variety. He probably creates fun and taboo shit for her. Does provide enough certainty. She knows how he's going to show up and react every time. She knows what he values and what he stands for. Contribution, connection, and love. If he fulfills those core needs as a woman,
The personal needs get...
doesn't matter. They're bonuses. So I'll liken it to the personal needs are one leg, but the core needs are the other 3. You have a stable thing that exists and can stand there. It's still going to be a bit shaky. There'll be issues, but it's not that important. You chuck the personal needs in there as well, and it's really stable and strong.
Yeah.
But the personal needs can be solved and met by people other than our lover as well. So
absolutely, yeah,
so
I
if
agree.
we're dating and I have a personal need for mental stimulation, ideally the more personal needs met by your partner, the more stable it is. It's like adding 10 more legs onto this table. It's never moving. It's heavier too, so it's weighed down more, so it's more sturdy. Whereas where other people fuck up is they go, my partner, this is actually a lot of higher value men that I've worked with. So men that have their shit together, their woman's genuinely happy and satisfied. The man gets bored of the woman, goes, she's perfect, she's so beautiful, I want her to be the mother of my children, but I'm not turned on by her, or I'm bored by her. What is it? It's like you have personal needs that you expect her to meet, which if you went and got met elsewhere, you would actually have more love and attraction for her again, because mental stimulation, you might not be able to get that from her. But if you went and found a woman that did mentally stimulate him, she'd probably provide headaches in other ways, because she might not be as, soft and gentle, which is also a value of his. So men fuck up when they finally get a woman that they do want. This is, another less common issue, but it's an issue nonetheless, is they finally get this perfect dream woman and then they cheat or they do some dumb shit. It's because they're expecting water from a well that doesn't have it to give. Go get it met elsewhere in healthy containers. So for men, where they often fuck up, and I suggest, is go get other men to be men with, and that'll meet a lot of your personal needs, which then ironically you've got this masculine energy in charge which you can take home again, and she's going to be turned on and affected by you in a different way.
Sport.
And it goes a bit woo-woo here, but you, as a man, you exude a different energy when you've just been with a lot of other men and have exuded masculine energy and let that flow. You show up different. Your cup's full in a way that she can never fill up, but we expect her to fill it up, and it's so unfair to do. But if we get it met in the right way and we show up in the relationship, she loves us more, we love her more, and it's right. It's healthy then. So needs, they're the important thing, and we do need to get more aware of them. And a good place to start is look at Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, and you just Google the 6 human needs and think, how am I meeting this need for my partner in a relationship? And then this core masculine needs, I'm still building this model, but men need to feel like their woman's devoted to them. If we're worried about our partner being faithful to us while we're trying to go out and build a business and be focused on dealing with assholes that are trying to rip us off, trying to close big deals, trying to show up and put on a great face and wear the sales hat, be a CMO, COO, CEO, and we're worried about her cheating, there's no fucking way you're going to be able to show up. And you're going to hate her guts, and you're going to go home and resent her because she doesn't appreciate you for all the hard work you're doing. So we need devotion, which if it's missing, the relationship's doomed. Or the man will tolerate it, which is the worst thing to do, and he'll still stay, but he'll devalue himself, and then she'll end up leaving him because... So
he's become weak now in her eyes.
Any man that accepts unacceptable behaviour, women are smart, this. Women's intuition is fucking on point. And even when you don't know what it is, you know something's there. So if you're again, this example, a client of mine at the moment, I'm helping him save his relationship, and his partner said to him, are you okay if I wear this out? And it was a bit provocative. And he didn't want to say yes, but the nice guy in him said, oh yeah, it's fine, honey, I don't mind. She fucking knew in her heart and soul something was off there. And she went, even if she didn't do it consciously, somewhere in her body, her feminine body went, you little bitch, you didn't stand up for me, you didn't tell me what you stood for, and now I'm going to go out and fuck it, and it fucks the relationship. And I often say to men, and I say, true or not, you have to imagine that your woman wants you to instill standards so that she knows where the lines are, so that she doesn't cross them because she doesn't want to. But if you don't set them, she's like, fuck it, I'll go find out myself and have fun in the process. And even if it's not that way, it's unfair to expect her to be loyal to you and give you what you need without ever communicating. I think. So,
I need more of this, man.
I know. You know what we all should
How good is it?
need is a dating app, right? What they do, and this is a good idea for you. You can take my idea anytime, but you have to put within your core needs to get onto the dating app first, and then you can get a nice statistic going around, hey,
Then you got to meet him again.
What?
Not a gaslight.
Well, then you can just match with your same core needs or your top 3 or whatever.
Well, here's the interesting thing: the core needs are the same for all men. Except so there's the core needs are core. So we all have them so there's core human needs. So by default as a human, you have those 6. So it's certainty and uncertainty, growth, love and connection, and contribution. So something to serve and contribute to. Women, so men and women have them, right? You go down one level, then there's, in terms of relationships, so there's core human needs and there's relationship needs, which if not met, the relationship's off. They're black and white. So fidelity, real simple one. If you cheat, relationship's over. So you need to fulfill the relationship needs to move on to the next process to meet each other. The problem is you can not meet the human needs, but you have to meet the relationship needs. after that, so we've agreed, we're compatible, we like each other. You know, you might meet the need of safety and love, but not the other ones. I can tolerate that. It then gets down to the core feminine and masculine needs. So certainty is similar to safety. So it's a real pole. That's why it's so powerful for women. If you don't feel safe, it's a big fucking no. Whereas he might not provide variety, uncertainty. That's a core human need, but it's not a double up as a feminine need as well. So you can tolerate a lack of fun, but you can't tolerate a lack of safety. I mean, women do, but if you tolerate it, it fucks with your insides emotionally. You don't know who you are. So there's core feminine needs such as safety, fun. No, you're good. What are the other ones? Yeah, it's definitely like my brain's.
Oh, no.
I know.
This is what I actually gets back. We'll wind it up. It's been 3 hours.
Yeah, wow.
We could just talk, like seriously. He's good, isn't he?
I think everyone's good. This has been unreal.
It's been good, hasn't it?
Good group.
Yeah. I reckon it's great. This is what we need, though.
I literally just built this model on core feminine needs. I'm like, what is it again? There's safety, variety. It's not devotion for women that they need to feel, but it's significance. If a woman doesn't feel significant in their partner's life, and contribution is one for women. So if a woman's love, I think we talked about this the other week, and it's a polarizing statement, but when I explain it, people go, fuck, it is too. And it's women love you by serving you as a man. And if you limit your woman's ability to be able to serve and contribute to you, you limit her love for you. So, like, I've always found that my partner, she gets so much enjoyment when I'm like, honey, it'd be really handy if you have time to do this. It'd help me a lot. She's like, oh my God, I get to help my partner. And it brings so much fucking joy in her.
It does, yeah.
Whereas most men are too busy being fucking nice guys all of the time, if they're not assholes. Oh no, honey, I've got it. And they never let their partner contribute to them. Therefore, you feel like you haven't contributed. And it's like buying or stake buying, I think they call it in poker. Like or pot buying. If you haven't got any chips in, you're not invested in the game. Yeah. Whereas the moment you have chips in and she's contributing in this outcome and feedback and appreciation, which is another core feminine need, appreciation for the significance that they can and the contribution add into the relationship. When there's that, like the woman just loves you by default. It's easy and it's effortless love.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's a lack of any of that, it's just a pain. That's why most relationships are pain. They're a pain. It's just you get into it to have more love and connection, but you end up with fucking frustration and anger and anguish and
resentment.
All the above.
And that shit literally ages you. Resentment. They've proven that resentment and contempt, on average, couples live 10 years shorter if there's contempt or resentment in a relationship.
Yeah, there's so many people out there that are in relationships that are just so resentful to their partners, and I think that even to themselves, you know, because in the end you made the choice to kind of be in a certain situation.
That client of mine who didn't communicate to his partner, he didn't want to wear I think it was pants, it was see-through yoga pants or something. Like, he probably he would have felt resentment for himself. So it's like we beat ourselves up, man. Yeah.
Oh, we'll wrap this up. Where do people find you? What's your business name?
It's just my name, Clayton Harrop. Yeah, I've done. It's early days into the online space with it. Like I've done a lot in person, but yeah, it's just my Instagram page for now and Facebook page. Yeah. And then I'm gonna start doing longer format videos soon on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I don't need a website yet. They'll maybe be too busy. Yeah. I'm coaching and building out all these models to give people, because if people are like, this is amazing. Like, is there a model of this? Just growing. Yeah, growing. It's growing a business at the same time as doing it. Yeah, that's good. Oh, we'll see. Yeah, is it good getting him on? We're going to wrap it up.
Okay, I couldn't think because like...
That's all right. That's all right. Well, yeah, okay.
Try not to pee yourself.
What are you guys going to do? Hey? You're going to do something?
We're going to book a session in with Clay. There's some therapy happening.
Well, you've done it now.
I know, right?
How good is he?
Let's all go together.
Yeah, let's go.
Group therapy session. Well, the beauty of what I do timeline therapy, you can group do that, funnily enough. You can all release anger at the same time. It's powerful stuff. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having you on.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming on too, you know.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've gotten heaps out of this, actually. It's been amazing speaking with two strong women about strong and feminine women. I think there's a bit of an issue or a divide in society between strong and feminine. I think they go hand in hand. I don't think a strong woman isn't... How do I say that? A strong woman has her feminine and owns it and harnesses it, whereas a lot of people, I think, are sacrificing it. And it's a shame to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think that too, a lot of the time being called strong and masculine.
Well, they say
You know,
strong,
Yeah.
they mean masculine.
Yeah, and then men saying, "Oh, you know, you're intimidating." It's just like,
Well, you're not intimidating. You look good in that dress.
oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
If I was wearing black, it would have
Well, you
been a
came as
different
Trinity
story.
last time.
Black leather.
Yeah, she's mixed it up. Okay, the giver.
After
All
I
right.
heard that about Trinity and the black couch, I was just like,
stodgy sort of message.
yeah, and I'm just like, no black this time.
No, well, thanks, guys. All right.
So
No,
thank
we
you,
really
We'll keep talking.
appreciate-
You hungry? I'm hungry.
Round 2 soon.
Yeah.
Getting hungry.
Yeah, round 2 for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I
Right.
can't believe that was
I'm-
3 hours.
Yeah, this is nice. All right, thank you.
I had to get
Yeah,
Nick to
thank you.
undo my bloody outfit over here because I was like, dude, I can't get out. This is so inappropriate.
You undo my belt. I think that's all right, we'll finish off with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
All right,
thank
so-
you, Dan.